Welcome to today's session of K-12 Data Science Connect conference for the educators, for the students, for the love of learning. We're all together today. My name is Ginger Baxter, and I'm going to be your moderator with my wonderful colleagues here on the call. First, a little bit of background about me as we introduce ourselves. I serve as the Assistant Dean of Graduate Career Advancement at the University of Miami Herbert Business School. My background and love of data and love of everything that is connected to numbers and math goes all the way back to, when I was in kindergarten and learning about all the multipliers that can happen. So it's been a lifelong joy of being connected with data. And I know I'm joined by Francis Boykin. Tell us a little bit about your background and share with us your journey.
So, hello everyone and welcome. My name is Francis Boykin. I work for AT&T and I've been at AT&T now for a little over 17 years. And I'm there as a director of advanced analytics, and I manage a team of data scientists, data engineers, and data analysts. And I have, just like Ginger, been involved in data since as far back as I can remember. And I might be dating myself, but I remember getting my first computer, and it was the TI-994A, the Texas Instruments that didn't even have storage. So you had to write your program and then leave your computer on to keep running it. But so I've been in data for a very long time, and I'm so excited to share my love of data and how I have progressed through my career with all of you.
Oh, Francis, you're taking me back. My first computer was the Tandy 1000 from Radio Shack. Yes, with the floppy drives, putting everything into RAM. So listen, we also have Peter Chen on the call. Peter, why don't you introduce yourself and share a little bit about how you're using data science?
Yeah, sure. A little bit about my background. Right now, I am a principal and founder of Hyperplanar. This is a data science consulting company. But before that, I was director of data science and VP of analytics across a number of different industry, banking, retail, petco, energy. So I've seen how data can be applied across a number of different practices and industries. That's really interesting. So regardless of your passion, interest in data, you can always get involved in data and data science. It's been applied everywhere. and I've been consulting with a lot of different industry, and I see that really well. And also on the management side, like Amelia, I've managed a team of data scientists, data engineer, and analysts, and help them grow in their career. And I've seen some of the analysts I mentor on now, they're all senior data scientists and moved up on their career. So it's all possible. They started out with pretty much nothing, and now they're pretty advanced in their career. So that's very encouraging. And also, in addition to my consulting practice, I'm also an academic. I'm an adjunct professor. I guess I teach data science and analytics. So I'm really excited about this whole conference with the K-12. But this is more for the university student. But I think it's now seeping down to the lower level, and that's pretty exciting. So.
Fantastic. And that's something a lot of us have in common, that we are adjunct faculty and we do take this love of learning into the classroom to remain fresh with our skills.
Yeah,
so Peter, love it.
Good news.
Good news, exactly. And artificial intelligence is the buzzword for the year, right? It's on ChatGPT has taken us down a road.
I use it every day to help me with my coding and whatnot. So
exactly. So another one of our colleagues on the call today is going to be Selma Dogic. Why don't you introduce yourself and share with us how you're using data science?
Yeah. Hi guys, I'm Selma. I lead the Analytics Center of Excellence at Carter's, and I think that this might be the first time, I'm not sure who's in the audience exactly, but I think this is the first conference where we might have some attendees actually wearing the products that we work for. So Carter's is a children's apparel company, and my job is really to help business users or users across Carter's do their jobs better and faster with data and analytics. So we really work to enable them with the right skills and consultation. I use data science in my role just across different, like business questions that we want to answer. Like I said, we want to get better at doing the things that we really care about, and that's selling high quality clothing to families. I love the poll question, who's wearing Carter's? I love that. This will be so interesting. I was going to say too, like a little bit of a tidbit, because I think it's interesting for the panel discussion that we'll have today, but growing up, I was always super intrigued with kind of mysteries and solving cases and all of that. And I feel like it really aligns with the work in data science, because that's what you're doing. You're using data to solve questions and problems. So that's kind of how I got into this. Is always trying to like solve something, and I feel like that's what data science is. So I'm super excited to be here.
You know, that trait that you're talking about, I think is probably, the whole panel would agree, the number one trait for data scientists is going to be curiosity. Mm-hmm. Not predetermining, not putting in your head what you think the data is going to tell you, but diving into the data and looking and learning and following where it leads and having that curiosity and mystery. So thank you so much for sharing that. Hey, listen, I know we have Anthony Dicecco on the call. Anthony, why don't you introduce yourself and tell them how you're using data science in your career?
Absolutely, yeah. And I'll start with, so I've my background started actually in math education, and I've always had a passion for math in general, and again, to the point of curiosity and, how do you solve one problem, a handful of ways, has always been interesting to me. So I think, that concept has gotten me into it, and it has driven my passion for math, but then, expanded upon that, and I've been applying it towards like business analytics, and that's where I've always been on that cusp of, basically in that data science world of applying strategies to numbers and data to try to figure out, what's the best way forward. And my most recent and current is at Chegg. So some people might know, but it's mostly focused on college-based education help for students, homework help and whatnot. So although I am, on the finance side, there's still a heavy base strategy portion of my role. But yeah, love being in a place where there are, lots of even distinctions between business intelligence to analytics to data science, as there's, a myriad of applications. So, very happy to be here.
Anthony, you just hit on something that I think is great for all of us to refresh ourselves. And remember, you said business analytics. So there are degrees in the Master of Science in Business Analytics. We have one at the University of Miami. We also have one in data science, and the two are inextricably intertwined. And so I love this concept of a business data scientist, right? Somebody who is looking at the data and making business decisions. And we used to say data-driven decisions. I prefer to think of them as data-inspired decisions. How did the data inspire you to make a different pathway? So kudos to you. Thank you for bringing that to our attention. We also have on the call, it's going to be Savannah Norem. And your background is very fascinating, especially right now when we're talking Oppenheimer out there on the TV, because you have some background over there at Oak Ridge National Laboratories. So would you walk us through your background and tell us a little bit how you're using data science?
Absolutely. Yeah, I love that you did your research. I don't think I threw out there on my slides that I worked at Oak Ridge. But yeah, so I got a bachelor's and master's in computer science. My first real exposure to data science was doing undergraduate research and working on making graphs and sort of doing that data analytics for graduate students while I was an undergrad. And getting to be involved with research and all of that really inspired, sort of what we've all been mentioning is like that curiosity. I phrased it in an interview at one point as, I always loved knowing something that no one else knew yet. Like I got to be the person to discover something. I got to be the person to find some piece of this data analytics that was like, I know this thing and now I get to tell everybody about it. So that's really sort of what drove that love and passion is sort of getting to be the first person to know something and discover something new and share it. So then I worked at Oak Ridge National Lab, as well as at a targeted advertising company in New York City for a little while. And then I now work as a developer advocate at a database company. So I get to use a tool. It's called Redis. It's a cool database. Big fan. But I get to use this tool, and we're having like vector similarity search, which is coming, to the forefront of these conversations with artificial intelligence and ChatGPT, and how we're going to be able to use all of that data and how to get those meaningful vectors out of data and use that. Yeah.
Beautiful. What I love that we're finding that we all have in common is we've had this desire to learn more, and it's developed into a lifelong learning. So we've got some students that are K through 4 on the call, and we can help them understand that learning is always fun and that it continues on through college, through grad school, through life, through your business work. So we also have a number of K-12 educators on the call. Almost 36% of our attendees today are going to be educators. So we want to make sure that we empower them with nuggets that can help them and enlighten their students and help them develop that love of how do I get to be a data scientist. So if you could think back to elementary school, middle school, high school, what was your favorite subject? And then what extracurriculars were you doing? And do you think those extracurriculars led to a career in data science? So Francis, let's start with you.
So my favorite subject, I was really lucky. I grew up in Department of Defense schools. So I was a dog kid. My dad was in the military, grew up in Europe all my life. So I was pretty lucky to take something called an ASVAB when I was in the 8th grade. And the ASVAB tells you your aptitude in specific areas. And the particular area that the ASVAB came back for me was data. Well, I'm an A-type personality, so if the test said that, then that was what it was. So I just went home, told my mom, ixnay on the bicycle for Christmas. I was going to need a typewriter to learn how to type so that I could be really proficient in computers. So I was lucky in the fact that even though I'm not going to tell what year, because then I'll tell my age, but at that time, we had some of the first computers that were in schools that were where we had classes. And so I was able to actually take decision science and data classes, coding classes. So all through from the 8th grade on up, that's where I focused my attention, and then went on, got my undergraduate in computer science, and then went from there. And always stuck to data all the way up through my doctorate. And so that's always what I've done. For extracurricular things, so obviously if I was into the ASVAB and data science, I probably lean toward the kind of more geeky things. So I did Model United Nations. That was my extracurricular, and I loved it. And I was Djibouti, so I was the country representing Djibouti. Small African country. But it was so much fun because we got to learn so much about different cultures and the importance of not just the politics and the economics, but just the importance of the lives of people other places. And because I lived in Europe, I got to actually go to all the great places where the real United Nations do their work. So that was my extracurricular. I tried sports and I was awful, just awful. So that's it.
Fantastic. I can relate to you. I did Model United Nations as well. But for those of you on the call, Francis used the term ASVAB. And I want to remind y'all what that stands for and how you could, if you wanted to today, to take that evaluation and get some more what we would call self-awareness. So it's the Armed Services Vocational Aptitude Battery. And it does give you some insights. Unlike an SAT or an ACT, it's going to give you more career kind of connectivity. So the test is still available, and I always love more and more self-awareness. So thank you for bringing that one to our attention. Listen, I really want to hop over to Anthony. Anthony, talk to us. Tell us what your favorite subject was in school, and then also any extracurriculars.
For sure, yeah. Math naturally, has always come kind of easy to me, and so I feel like naturally it was the easiest. But I've also loved all the sciences, because I feel like there's so much, interconnectivity and exploration, and the scientific method of experiments has always been interesting to me. So. And again, as I mentioned, how do you solve one problem, 3 different ways is always interesting, because, as you, and I feel like it's been helpful, because in the real world, you don't always have all the things out there to solve one question a way that you've solved it in the past. And so different levels of unknowns are there. And so I think that applies a lot in science fields across, whether it's physics or sociology even. And so, yeah, extracurriculars, for me were, music and running were mine, really. So, yeah, I know there's a lot of math and numbers kind of go into the background of like music theory sometimes. So that's always fun. But yeah, and then just, running. I always loved soccer, but never really played it. Just been a runner. Yep.
I love the connection that you just made between music and math and the data mindset, right? So there is a nice connection. So you're a rock star. You exactly. You're a data science rock star. So I like that connection. And those of you that are out there, there are some connections that actually will help improve and accelerate the speed at which you can adopt and adapt to more and more data. So I do think running has that component as well, because of the endorphins. So I would definitely put those on. So now we can go to the United Nations. We can make a case based on our data. Then we can run and think about it. And then we can play the song at the end. Rockstar, we're ready. So, yeah, see, we're energized. We are definitely energized. Savannah, talk to us. Tell us about your favorite subject, and then maybe what you did for extracurriculars.
Sure. So my favorite subject was reading. I was always the student that was like, oh, I finished my work, I'm reading under my desk. I am good at math, but I did not enjoy math for a very long time. It didn't get into really until I was in college doing undergraduate research, where I sort of got that feeling of like, oh, this is why I care about math. Up until that point, I had a lot of that, like, when am I ever going to use X equals the opposite of B, plus or minus? Like, when am I going to use this in my life? I don't care. So math was not my favorite subject for a very long time. And then extracurriculars, I sort of went all over the board trying to figure out what I enjoyed. I did some theater. I played some volleyball. I did a lot of, I went to Model UN one year. I just kind of tried it all and found that, the things that I enjoy are crafting. I crochet very often and reading. So those are sort of still my hobbies that I discovered when I was trying to figure out what I would enjoy doing.
Fantastic. What you're describing is what we actually suggest our graduate business students do, that they explore things. So you were exploring, that they experience them to find out what they like and what they don't like, and then engage completely in the community. So you're still crafting, you're still engaging, and then you can accelerate your career in that direction. So bravo, I love it. And I love that you brought reading back to the forefront. Reading is something that, in the world that we're in today, especially these K-12 educators are thinking students can listen to it, podcasts, right? They can get it in a short, snackable moment. And yet the deep connection you get with reading and the way that you get to picture it in your mind and all those neuro connections that they're making, reading is still one of the most fundamental activities that we can do to develop the mindset for data science. the thinking, the reflective thinking that goes in that process is very critical. So thank you for bringing reading to the forefront. Listen, let's go ahead before we got two more to ask, but let's ask the audience exactly what extracurriculars are you involved in right now? Let's see if we can find any commonalities there. So I also want to talk to Selma. Selma, talk to me. Tell me what your favorite subject was in school, and then also what were your extracurriculars?
I loved all of the subjects, but I would say that I was really interested in, like, in the early years, social studies and science, I think for the same reason, because it was like figuring out the way things worked, right? And like the way that societies worked, and even like events in the past, kind of like, why did this happen? If, this person wasn't around, what would have changed? And I feel like that's very similar to kind of like the intellectual curiosity in science. I was never super good at math. It was always a little bit of a challenge that sometimes I did not enjoy until I got to high school, where I took AP Stats, and that was by far my most favorite class. And I actually ended up being really good in statistics, and took that in college too. So I would say high school, that was my favorite. But before that, I was really interested in both social studies and science for much of the same reason.
I like that you're bringing the social studies in. That is definitely something that at times we as educators, it's not, reading, it's not writing, it's not arithmetic, the former R's, which in the world we're going into, we're going to be, having new skills that we need, but we still need to be aware of our social sciences and how they develop a student's mindset, and how it actually leads to transferable skills.
That's what I was going to say. And actually, I feel like that helps me a lot, like in my current role, that kind of understanding of like how people in societies work. So like on the strategy side, dealing with a bunch of different, leaders across business units, that like having some of that insight definitely helps.
I love it. I love it. And those of you on the call that are not quite up to the high school level, she introduced another concept that I would love everybody to step back and understand. It's called AP. She took AP Statistics, and AP stands for Advanced Placement. And so advanced placement means when you're in high school, you can take certain classes, and if you pass an exam, you can receive college credit, which can shorten the time that you actually attend college, or it can help you get into higher level subjects faster in college. So I thank you for bringing in AP Statistics, and that lets everybody know another pathway to learning more. And maybe you're at a school that doesn't have that AP class. Well, in the world that we're in today with the internet and with all the videos, we should be able to help you find something similar to give you that same skill set if your skill doesn't offer it. So just know it's all about lifelong learning and building the pathways and the connections. So Peter, talk to us. What was your favorite subject in school? And then tell us what your extracurriculars were. I think you're on mute. Yeah.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
Can you hear me now? Okay. Yeah. So my favorite subjects. Yeah, I actually, I like the sciences and the math, but beyond that, actually, in my senior year in high school, we had a professor from a local university teach like an advanced course, kind of like similar to an AP. It was in political science, and I actually enjoyed that a lot. Even though it wasn't quantitative in a sense, but it was different, right? It was learning about political theories and all that. That was kind of interesting. But obviously, science and math were my core subject I like, and my extracurricular. Well, in my high school was a managed school, so we focused on math and science. So I did a lot of science fair projects. I competed, at the local level and state level as well, and so I enjoy doing that every year. I had a different science project idea I want to test out. One year was physics, another year was biology. And actually, one year it was really creative. I combined music, which I didn't know a lot, barely anything, and math and programming together. And really, really looking back, it's pretty crazy. But I was in eighth grade, so I didn't know anything better. So there's this ancient Chinese text called the I Ching. I don't know if you might have heard of it. It's a numerological book. But what I did was that because it's based on the yin yang theory, so what I did was I convert the yin yang into binary system, 0 1, so the 64 hexagram. And then I mapped that into musical notes. And then I wrote a program that convert those binary into musical note into playing to some songs depending on the hexagram you picked. It was kind of weird, but HP really liked it, and they gave me an award for the science fair project, and they took me to the campus, and I got the what was it, the TI 49A calculator as a prize for doing that science fair. So that was kind of funny. So I like kind of combining different fields together, and obviously, so now being my data science practice, I don't just work in one particular industry. I work in a lot of different industries that I see this parallel and the connection between different things. I think that's important as well, and the creativity. So I think even those who are not necessarily hardcore math science nerds should be encouraged to go into data science, because there's a lot of creativity in it. It's not just crunching numbers and writing code. That's part of it. But I think in the future, as AI and generative AI can do some of the more mundane tasks, in fact, I use Gen AI to help me write some of the mundane code that I don't want to rewrite, and then I add my modeling code or some other thing to it. So and that way you can be creative about it. So I think people who might not like the more coding or what they think is too boring or rigorous part of it can still go into data science and use their humanities or arts or other creative things to combine that. And maybe in the future, because robots or programs can write maybe 80-90% of what we need to build, and then the 20% that makes us human will make it more important to be more valuable in your decisions because of your creativity and your humanities. Right? So.
Peter, you said you won my heart when you said you took your math and turned it into musical notes and created songs based on the patterns. You won my heart. And then you went one further. And guys, I'm going to walk off camera for just a minute. You introduced the HP. You said HP was your calculator. And guys, look what I have right here. I have the HP 12C, the class. Look at their class.
Oh, yeah, maybe it was that. Yeah, maybe it was, that was the HP
open. That's the collector in me, right? Exactly. So
yeah, they even inscribed my name on it because I won the prize, and then I got on campus, and then they take a tour of the, exactly. I was an eighth grader, but anyway. So it was kind of cool, right, to see the plan and all that, and it wasn't actually it was given for most creative data science, a science project. It wasn't like necessarily the most rigorous or whatever. Like the first prize winner was like, I don't know, someone do some really hardcore science. But it was the most creative one. But that was what I got. But I didn't remember until now, until you guys talked about it. So I come on, then now I realized, oh, that's what I kind of do like in my career. I unconsciously kind of like to combine different things rather than just do one thing. And I think I forgot which blogger on the talk about skill stacking, right? So if you want to be successful in your career, there's two ways. You can do really deep and like be a super specialist, right? And be the best person in whatever field you want to be in. And that's hard because there's only a very handful of people who can be, just by the pure ranking, they can be the best, right? But if you stack different skills, then it becomes unique, right? Then no one can compete with you because you create your own space, right? And I think that's probably a good career advice in general, because if you try to compete to be the best in one particular thing, it's very hard. I mean, it's just by definition only a few people can be that, right? But yet, if you're good in a lot of different areas, you combine. No one can beat you, right? Because you are your own space, right? If you are able to combine different things, and I think that's the way forward, because the narrow thing can now be pretty much automated, right? Or very soon, I think people will be very surprised how many pointy things can be done with computer, because those are very exact with prescription algorithms, which can be described by large language models and other types of deeper learning type of models. Yeah, so. And that's what makes us human, I think. Right? I mean, we shouldn't be kind of hammered into things because we.
So, guys, I'm looking in the chat.
This is a high-paying job. I should do that.
High-paying job.
yeah, so I gotta like do all these things to get. I mean, you should. I mean, obviously, obviously, I'm the fundamentals. I mean, I wouldn't say much all the time. So I did get the fundamentals, but I'm saying to combine to go to the next level, I think you have to kind of be a little bit more creative and just just too narrow. I mean, so that's just my opinion. I'm not saying you should do that or not. I mean, it's your life. You should figure out what makes sense for you and so.
Okay.
Yeah, it's actually APC. I don't know why I say it. Yeah, yeah. Why would APC? Yeah, I have to look around somewhere in my garage. In my garage, you have it, and the reverse Polish notation is a little bit get used to.
Yes, and you mentioned reverse Polish notation just there. So the students on the call, it's a different way of entering your information into a calculator. Listen, I've been watching in the chat, and look, pickleball is very popular right now. Music and reading are still something that the students are doing a lot of. Board games, and guys, I am all about the board games. So mine would be Settlers of Catan, and my niece and nephew know that I prefer Monopoly, but they like that one, so we've bonded over that one. So I didn't tell y'all my favorite subject, and I haven't shared with you my extracurriculars. So my favorite subject in school actually goes back to 5th grade. So those of you that are educators, 5th grade was just a wonderful year for me. My mom put me in summer school, and I was angry. I was like, I don't need to go to summer school. I have straight A's. What are you doing putting me in summer school? She should have called it enrichment camp, but she didn't. So I went to the school, and the course they taught me was how to talk back to your television set. That was the name of the course. And every commercial we watched, we found the flaws in the logic. We did the math behind the commercials to figure out why and how this business was actually accelerating and engaging and getting more share of the market. And that turned into a love of business, because business isn't usually taught in the K-12 curriculum. And I thought, wow, when I was reflecting on this, it's not a subject, it was actually a course that made a huge impact on me. My extracurriculars, like I said, I've identified with a lot of you on that. I also was playing bridge and doing chess. So I think a number of the students out there, if you're playing cards or if you're playing chess, that's a great one to help develop the mindset for data science. I did dance, and that would be jazz, tap, and ballet. And I was a college cheerleader. So just putting that all, she's smiling. She's like, no way, Ginger. Putting it all together, it's owning your own self, right? Being comfortable with doing what makes you happy, that helps you follow your path. So how do you become a data scientist? Some of them wanted step-by-step out there. I know I'm getting questions, step-by-step instructions. I need to learn how to code in R. I need to learn Python. I need to learn BASIC. No, you need to learn structure, problem solving, curiosity, iterative thinking. I saw a shake of the head, Anthony. Yes, you have to be resilient. You have to have that grit. You try it and it doesn't. I saw you, Francis. You look at it and it's not working. And before you get frustrated and then walk away, you have to stop, breathe, reflect, and then ask for help. And that was the one thing I think you can really develop in K through 12 is knowing when to ask for help and when to try it again on your own. And that's something that you can develop early on. Sometimes students are asking for help all the time, which means they're not becoming independent. We need them to become independent and say, I did A, I did B, and I'm stuck on C. Can you help me with C? If you can unlock C, then we'll be able to continue down a path and maybe build a wonderful program where you win a prize. I will also suggest strongly to those students out there that it's good to compete and learn from each other through that collaborative process. So I did quiz shows and I did quiz bowls, and yes, guys, I was on a game show. So it's also having that love of connectivity and learning. Another question we were hoping to talk about is, and we've already mentioned it, our tools. And you can kind of see us as being nostalgic about our former tools. Yeah, we're just, so those of you that are in K or in middle school or high school, you've grown up with maybe Facebook, or you've switched over to Instagram, or you've become really a big fan of TikTok. Those are some of the tools that you're using right now. It may be Google Analytics. But notice the love of tools didn't stop us. We didn't stop learning and stop at that tool. We continued. So really what the tools were doing was helping us develop the mindset. So the phrase is called marry the mission, but date the methodology. The mission is discovering, figuring out what we're seeing in the stories and in the data, but using different tools and different pathways. So I think something the educators would really love to hear from all of y'all. And let's start with Selma first. What tools are you using at Carter's?
So we use a couple. My team is on the cloud, so whenever we do any kind of robust data engineering, data modeling, or data science, we often leverage AWS's SageMaker service. So, and we're writing Python code in there. And then we use Tableau for data visualization and kind of storytelling. And then Tableau Prep, which is actually a free part of like our Tableau offering, which helps us do like the data wrangling, right? So all of that data preparation we do through Tableau Prep. But I would say that, you know, I actually had a VP ask me early on when I started at Carter's, oh, so like, what do you like better? Like, do you like R or Python? And I was like, I don't know, like if there's, you know, I feel like people kind of pick one to learn, and that's the one that they stick with. But I think that in the world of like data science, you know, those like, you know, Python and R and all of that seems really, really like enchanting, right? Like, oh, I should, and I told him, I was like, I don't know, I just feel like most of your people should just learn how to write SQL, right? Which is a very standard language for querying and manipulating data. And so I know that there are a bunch of tools out there now, even some that are free, that are like low code, no code. But I agree 100% with that that statement that you just made, that for me it's really less about the tool and more about the problem and the way that I'm going to solve that problem, right? And I think once you have a couple of those under your belt, then it's easy to go from like Excel to SQL to, you know, Python to Tableau Prep, right? Because you already kind of understand fundamentally how to approach a problem and how to solve for it.
Well, the one thing I heard towards the very end of that is you can go from Excel to, right? You said you can go from Excel to SQL and Tableau. I will tell you, and I don't know if the panelists here will agree, Excel skills are still required. Look at Frances. She's like, oh, absolutely. She's not going to hire anybody if they don't have Excel skills. AT&T, and that's, you know.
Well, no matter what you use, tool you use, all of this data, all of this analysis, all of this information has to be packaged and delivered to somebody. And those are usually our leaders. And our leaders don't learn Tableau. They don't, you know, have time to fiddle with Power BI. They want an Excel with exactly what they need in said Excel. I have gotten some of our leaders to use Tableau, but for the most part, all of our leaders want everything in Excel. So you're absolutely right, Ginger. You can learn all the tools you want, but when you package that up and deliver it to the people who are at the level that they can use that information to make big decisions, they're going to want it in Excel.
I love that. Francis is here in the chat. Somebody goes, hey, students, that's Google Sheets for you. The classic question, they're saying R versus Python is a classic debate. I tell everybody, choose the right tool for the purpose, right? It's the right tool for the purpose. And if you need to learn a tool, the cool thing is you know how to learn. You've learned how to learn. So you can transfer that knowledge to the tools. I'll tell you, for me, learning R, and I'm not good, it's clunky. I was doing it as a mature person over 40 years old, back in school with people half my age, much faster. and I couldn't see the board. So I had to get approval from the faculty member to look at somebody else's screen. So they would copy it from the board onto their screen, and I could look at their screen because I couldn't see it. Because the I and the L all look the same when you're seeing it projected. And I didn't have the knowledge to put all the pieces together, but I did. I learned to code. I can code in R. It's clunky, but I can't do Python yet, and it's on my to-do list. Someday I'll get there. Listen, Anthony, talk to us about the tools that you're using in your role.
Yeah, for me, obviously Excel is a key as mentioned. But yeah, and then on my side, it's a lot of data. So it's SQL largely. And then again, for me, coding wise is R. I just kind of grew up at the education side of R and doing stats stuff in R. So yeah, R has been my passion. I feel like I respect Python, but at the same time, I just always prefer R.
You respect Python, but you prefer R. So you're an R rock star. Okay, that's fantastic. No, y'all, here's the nerd in me. R is based on Fortran, right? And it came out of Bell Laboratories. And the original programming language of R was S, believe it or not. So look, Francis, you piped in, but we didn't ask you about other tools that you're using at AT&T.
So the interesting thing that I wanted to add on this is that when I started at AT&T 17 years ago, we were using one set of tools, and we have moved so far away from that set of tools today. So within the last 2 years, we've moved away from Teradata and the Teradata tools and SAS, we were a SAS house. We've moved away from SAS. We've now moved into Snowflake. We're using Tableau, Power BI, some of the other ones I wrote down. Databricks is another one. So we've started moving more to the open source tool set. And so the thing that I wanted to mention about tools is be careful about becoming so connected to a tool, because you may end up like at AT&T when we have a whole organization that decides year by year which tools are going to be the standard tools set for us. So you'll switch tools many times in your career. So I think Ginger was right when she said it's learning to learn. So being able to learn the next tool that comes out. I mean, 5 years ago did we even think about ChatGPT? And now we're using ChatGPT. So yes. So right now it's that set, and the R versus Python debate is big at AT&T. We still argue about it. My team focuses on Python. We use Python within Databricks. We write straight Python, but I like R. I prefer R, but R is based on SQL. It's very similar to SQL coding, and even though I teach Python, I still prefer R.
That is fantastic. You have the depth of knowledge to be able to teach something when you prefer another tool. And that is the strength of what a data scientist can do, because you're choosing the right tool for the right purpose and the right time. Something that you said that I thought was interesting, because you're bringing it from the perspective of AT&T. You're bringing it from a practical application perspective. I was working with another Fortune 500 company, and they're a Java shop. And they have 50 million lines of code in Java. Yet they still have 100 million lines of code in COBOL. They have legacy. And that's something that the students out here need to understand, that you think everything's going to be progressive and you're going to be in the latest, greatest, next thing you are going to be. And yet at the same time, things have to be backwards compatible, because it's been built on an infrastructure that was there before these things were discovered. And so I think that that's a really interesting point. I tried to convince the faculty here to run a workshop on COBOL, because I was like, look, guys, we can get all our students a summer opportunity, and we can code in COBOL. We can take this company, this Fortune 500, from 0 to 60 and then accelerate even faster. And they're like, Ginger, no, that's too retro for us. So, and those of you that don't know, it was computer operating business language. And I think it was founded and started by Grace Hopper. And the Grace Hopper celebration is coming up in September. It's the largest organization for women in technology. 30,000 people will be in Orlando in September. So listen, I don't think we've heard about the tools, Peter, that you're using in your career.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, I'd like to echo Amelia and everyone. Actually, a lot of tool transitions throughout my career. I started using, when I came out as an analyst, using S+, which is similar to S. And I was really surprised that someone knew about the language S, because I thought it was like ancient history, right? And S+ came out at AT&T Bell Lab, and since it was used by my boss and my group, so I had to learn S+. And that's fine, because when you come out, they don't expect you to know anything. You learn on the job, right? So I learned S+, and I really liked it a lot. And then later on in my career, S+ was replaced by R, which, because R grew out of S+, right? R is the open source version of S, right? It started by New Zealand professor, right? Stat, in New Zealand, then he open sourced it and everything. And I really liked R, because R is very similar to math. It's vector based, right? I mean, if you think in math, and it maps really well to R. And at that time, a lot of statistical libraries were R and R in R. If you read some publication, someone would have R code for that type of models or that type of technique, and Python would have nothing, right? And then after that, and more recently, I'm now exclusively Python, because the way the business has evolved, and it's kind of interesting how these, I started out S+ and R, and then Python, of course, SQL along the way to grab the data and various type of database. But the whole debate between Python and R is interesting, because they do very similar things. And for a while, Python didn't have the versatility of R in terms of advanced stats library. It still doesn't, but it's catching up really fast, and it's telling you, things can change, right? I mean, you just because you love one language, the other language is now catching up, and also because Python is a more general, versatile programming language. You can do web development, you can do system programming, all that stuff. So it's the glue code for the whole, for everything. Like you can stay in one environment. Whereas R, you can build models, you can run stand-up, but then that's about it, right? Or now they have a little bit of library where you can do a little bit of web, but not to the same extent. Like they have the Django framework for web development in Python. The whole entire website built out Python. That's not the case for R. There are some web hosted service where you can put some widget, using R and stuff like that. So there's some plus and minus. I think if you want to learn the more versatile, I think Python's more so. But if you just want to build model, do quick analysis, I think R is maybe a better way. But it doesn't really matter. It's all the same. Right? It's how you learn, and being adaptable to new tools. Because every year there's new stuff. And then now there's Julia, right, which is even the faster version. Right? It's compiled, so it's much faster than Python. It takes the best of a lot of different languages, combine them, and it's catching up. Right? There's a lot of numerical optimization types of library, and then machine learning as well.
Absolutely.
But the key is just to be open and learn new things. That's it. Because in this industry, it doesn't stay static, right? So you can't be like, oh, I can only do this one tool. I don't want to learn any other tool. Right? If you go from job to job, one shop might be R, another one might be Python, another shop might do something else. Right? So you can't just say no. Then obviously you can't. You have to be productive.
Exactly. Be open. Exactly. That's part of the conversation for these students K through 12. Be open to learning. We've said a word quite frequently that I want the students out there to understand what we mean, because we say model, and we said model UN, and it's a different use of the word model. They think of model maybe as in supermodel and walking down the runway and wearing really cool designer clothes. But when we talk about model in this context, what we're meaning is we've taken data, we've looked at it, we've learned something about it, and then we're using it to try to predict something in the future. So we're trying to say, can we model this? And how is it going to help us predict something in the future? So if you were younger out there and you were hearing the word model, I want to make sure that we didn't ignore and help you learn how we're using it in this context. Listen, I have one more person. Savannah, we haven't talked about your tools, have we?
That's okay. Mine are easy.
Crazy.
I'm a Python
You're
person
a Python person.
through and through. That's like 99% of what I do. I've touched R a few times. My experience with Excel is like open Excel, be like, all right, take this CSV that I made from my Python script and put it in Excel for me and format it a little bit, make it look the way that someone up the chain wants it to. But yeah, pretty much Python through and through. There are some libraries that are coming out, and always being improved on for Python that makes those data science things easier and quicker and better. So like, there are whole libraries that are just for machine learning algorithms, and like scikit-learn is a really common one now, and using like pandas data frames to do some of these data analytics. Python really has a lot of tools inside of it that make reading and outputting and analyzing data very convenient. So yeah, I'm a Python person.
Python all the way. Okay. The debate goes on because we, in our own group here, we have Python and R.
I just want to inject one little thing.
Yeah, sure.
That's okay. The pandas data frame is great. I use it every day. But that concept came from R. Just like all get the credit for that.
I mean,
I guess you
want to make sure.
I'll give R the little asterisk notation, like thanks for your contribution.
Yeah. No, I love Python.
Oh man, tough audience here. Tough audience. I know the educators are loving it. So listen, we've got about 3 minutes left. And what I like to do, which is a little bit off script, is simply go down to one word. If you were to gift one word to explain how to become a data scientist to this next generation, what would it be? Francis, do you think you could give us one word, the gift that you would love to give to them, the skill, the attribute? Flexibility. Got it. I think you're right. If you're not flexible as you learn to become a data scientist, and you can't pivot and go back door sometimes, right? Sometimes through the side entrance, that's going to hamper you if you always have to go in a linear fashion, right, to find the data. So flexibility. Anthony, I know you were already thinking, I saw it on your face. What gift would you give to the next generation of data scientists?
Yeah, I think the theme that has been touched on a lot is around that, exploration, and, Kimberly in the chat, really closely basically to that curiosity. So yeah, exploration, curiosity. One of those
Exploration,
two.
curiosity. Keep developing that curiosity. Stretch yourself, grow beyond what you're doing today. Be willing to take that risk. So let's come over to you, Savannah. Could you tell us what gift you would want to give, the attribute, the trait, the word for the next generation of data scientists?
I'm going to say resiliency, but clarify with the idea of getting more comfortable being wrong and getting more comfortable not knowing things, and sort of that idea, you touched on earlier of like knowing when to ask for help and knowing when to do all of those things, and, getting comfortable in that space of, I have an idea of how this is going to go, and it might go really poorly. It might not go at all the way you expect it to, but learning how to recover from that and how to use the things you learn when you fail to get better.
I love it. That's something that we talk about all the time. If you go for an interview, and guys, if you are 14 and higher, you are in the marketplace. You can become somebody that's already earning money for what you do. And one of the questions that's almost always going to be on a behavioral interview is, tell me about a time when you failed and what did you learn from it? So they're all smiling. They've all been in those interviews. So just knowing that failure is a way of growing. So definitely, I agree with you. That was wonderful. Listen, we have Peter. Peter, will you tell us your one word, your gift that you'd like to give for the next generation of data scientists?
I think everyone kind of has a very similar theme. So I think it's just I mean, it's gonna sound like a repeat, but it's just learning. I think throughout your career, you should always be learning, be open to learning new things, right? Because, like I said, just in the language tools, I started with S plus and then R and now Python, and AI stuff, machine learning and Gen AI. I mean, I'm always learning new things. So I like to learn new things, and I don't think this is the right field for me. I mean, it's never static, right? And it's also the fun part. It's a little stressful in a way because you always feel like you're on a treadmill because you're like, oh God, there's a new tool, there's a new open source library. I learn now. but in some ways it's kind of fun because if you always it's never a dual day, right? Because you always have to keep up pace if you want to be on top of the industry and stuff like that. Right? So.
I agree. So learning is definitely something. We were here today to learn how to become a data scientist. It's a great kind of segue to closing us today. Been watching in the chat. I saw out there that Victor said his one word, playful, that you need to have a sense of playfulness as you work into the data. I also see out there, with Anthony putting out there, all models are wrong, but some are useful. So I love that. For me, my one word is passion. Do what you do because you're passionate about it. And when I talk with the students, I truly ask them to find love of place. And that means love where you are in your life, love where you're doing it and who you're doing things with and the collaboration that you're going through. So love of place. And then we have love of people, those that we surround ourselves that can help us be better and bring out the best in us. Find your purpose and then follow your passion. So I would tell you my one word is fearless. Be fearless in your pursuit of your dreams and your goals. Take your education with you at all times. Bring your curiosity, and you will be on a path to being a data scientist. Anything else, guys? Then I think it's a wrap. Thank you, speakers. Thank you, Francis. It was good to see you again. Anthony, as always, love your insights. Definitely, Savannah, because I'm from Georgia, I love your name even. So it was fun to have you on the call. And then Peter, your insights were incredibly valuable. Data Science Connect is stronger because of it. I started with Data Science Connect, maybe 10, 12 years ago, and we've grown to a community of over 60,000 people in 80 different countries. So you've joined us in a wonderful time as we continue to connect with students, with parents, with educators. And we're signing off from Data Science Connect K-12 conference, largest one in the world for students. Goodbye. Have a great day. And guys, it's all about the you.